I was kind of, well, it's slightly snowing outside, and I'm trying to. I'm on row 26
Oh, that's
for the
cool.
second time because I last night I thought I violated my policy of 2 rows on a work night because I got home early, so I thought I would do 3, and then
Right.
I realized after I put the lifeline in that I had done the even row from the right as if it was an odd row. So everything, all the holes were going to be offset by 1.
Right.
So I picked it out, but it was dark. I mean, I had my living room lights on and I was using a tapestry needle for the knit two togethers. At least there wasn't a double decrease because I didn't want to rip out 5 rows back to the other lifeline,
Right.
which I thank God had not removed yet. Um, so yeah, so now this morning I'm trying to pick it back up to, get back to where I had been at 8:30 last night. But anyway,
It's like it's all knitting. You get time to knit. It sounds good.
I know. Well, it's just, yeah, I have so much stuff that I want to do and so much progress I want to make, and I never make as much progress as I
I
hope.
mean, Shetland Lace like horrible this way because it just the progress is not visible at all, basically. So
Yeah. Well, and
it's
like I said, well, it's getting a little bit better. I mean, I can actually see
it's totally getting better. You halfway there.
well, 26 out of what is it, 70?
Well, the thing is like the
Uh,
hardest part is just to start because you don't see the lace, you don't see what's happening. It's hard to pull on the fabric. So the very beginning is actually the hardest part, and then it does get better, because like
and
then getting
yeah.
used to also like seeing what's happening. So
I think it was the first or second um double decrease row, and I'm pretty sure it was the last row I did on the metal needles. I I missed a double decrease stitch, I think. But because I put a lifeline in like I had the lifeline in probably the row below it.
Mm,
So it caught it. So it looked fine until I got about 10 rows further up and I had 2 other lifelines in and I thought, well, I'm going to remove this one. I don't need it anymore. And then the stitch pops out and flops down. But it's close enough to the bottom that I'm going to tie it into the bottom because I can't, there's no way I can pick it up through the
right.
lacy hole pattern work. But it's right down on like row 4. So I thought I'll just nick it
Yeah, you
into
can
there
just
and
yeah, just sew it in basically.
yeah,
I mean,
because I'm not gonna.
sometimes you have to just
I
like let things happen and like fix it
Yeah.
with something.
One of the ladies at Makers Meetup last Monday said she had to start over 37 times.
Well, when first time I tried brioche, it was 18 times. And the last time I was like 2/3 of done with the scarf and I just couldn't catch those stitches. Like I couldn't figure out where I could stop to find it in the pattern. Like I just lacked all experience of reading the knitting and fixing the mistakes, right? So like the 18th time, I had like this enormous scarf and was just like all like frogging the whole thing, So it's like sometimes that's what it takes for the light bulb to go on and like for
Yeah.
you to get how to read it. Like yesterday, somebody commented on one of my shorts, and the idea of the short was that like I hold my needles really close to the tips because that gives me the most control. And the lady said, well, you have to help me because like my tension is so tight that I can't even remove it put it on the needle from the cord. Like my stitches are so tiny, like when I do that I can't move it on the needle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, go figure, right? Like without seeing it, like go figure what's happening. But like a lot of times I notice like if I'm really tense, if I'm gripping my needles, my tension is much tighter than
Yeah.
just sitting, relaxed, like going at my own pace and like nothing stresses me out. So like sometimes it's like as simple as that, you know, sometimes you just need to relax a little bit and let it go.
And I think it does make a difference once you've got some fabric on the needle. Like I'm finding now, obviously it's tight here because I was undoing it. This
Right.
is this is the stuff that's been undone. But you know, and so I'm picking it back out of knots and stuff. But I am finding it that my tension seems to be better. I'm still using the 2.25. Because you know, I thought, well, we'll give it a go. And if that doesn't, you know, for the first time, whatever. But that's what seems to be working nicely for me. The bamboo is better than the metal for slip because it doesn't slip.
Right. Interesting. Like I have a friend who bought Chiago Forte, and she went on vacation, and I decided that I'm gonna borrow the set for a couple days, and I really wanted to dislike it, and I really didn't. Like somehow it's like it's the most pleasant thing on your fingers to hold those needles, but then I noticed that they were basically there is enough stickiness to the needle that they hold the yarn and they don't let it slide. And I'm knitting this enormous worsted shawl now, and it was getting like my hand was really hurting after a while because it was like taking extra effort to slide it on the needle. So like for some projects, bamboo can be great, and like I think like for lace specifically, I love bamboo because it's like it just has this enough of a stickiness to not for your stitches to like fly off the needle.
Yeah. I tend to get fixed circulars because I've had some bad luck with interchangeables unscrewing or catching wool on the join.
Right.
But mine are the ones I have the most of are Chowgu. I have some Addies and I don't mind them either. But the Chowgus do not do magic loop. That cord does not flex.
Well, if it's long enough, then it does. You just have to make it longer. You have to go for the longer one. Well, I want to welcome everyone because we started like it was just Catherine and me, so we sort of got into the conversation. So welcome everyone. So glad to see you here. It's a nasty day in Boston. It's been raining all night and it's raining all day today. And I'm not a big fan of rain because every time it seriously rains, my basement gets flooded. So like I'm having like PTSD this day every time it rains, I don't sleep. So I'm glad you are here to keep me company and take my mind off possibilities. I wanna start with Patrick because we haven't seen you last week. How and you were sort of struggling, not struggling, but restarting. How is it going this time?
I've been traveling the last week or so I haven't had, but I did cast it on again. I'm only on row 1 though. But I have lifelines in this time, so that's going to make a huge difference, I think, if I make a mistake. So
okay, well, I mean, you're still with us. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
I feel like as long as you're still in the process and you're somewhat enjoying it and learning something from it, it's all good.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Does anybody wants to share the progress? I think somebody was showing, Wendy, was it you, like the beautiful red thing? Can you show us?
I have a phone in one hand and my work in the other, so it's a little, I'm not set up well to do these things. But I finished the first border and I just finished the second row of the center. So I feel like I'm zooming along now.
Yeah, I mean,
that is beautiful.
The center is also like much easier.
Yes, I did find a more suitable material for lifeline though. I was going to go with fishing line, and the clear nylon, you just couldn't see it. So I got this other fishing line. It's called spider wire stealth, and it has no memory. It doesn't curl up, and I'm really liking it.
So, okay, when you use the fishing line, do you tie the ends of it? Like, how do you make sure that it doesn't slide out of the knitting?
This is like a braid. This is not super slick, and I'm just so surprised there because it doesn't curl. The nylon stuff, it's too clear, it's too colorless, so you really can't see what you're doing, and it's not flexible enough to go through the eye of a tapestry needle. However, this this spider wire, and I just stumbled upon it in the Walmart, but it's like a moss green, and it doesn't curl up, it doesn't have memory. I can thread it through a tapestry needle, and I have a whole roll of it, so I'm excited.
That's very cool. I actually never heard anybody using it, so it's something new I'm learning today, and I'll give it a try because it sounds really like easy.
Yeah, it's called the labeling is in French and another language, so people who live in Canada might be able to find it. It's called spider wire. So it was about $12, but there's 125 yards of it. So and I got a different type of nylon fishing line, this stuff here, and it's too heavy, and all it does is curl up, and I couldn't thread it through the stitches because you can't get it smooth enough on the end. I suppose you could melt it, but it was just too much trouble. And so I'm liking the spider wire. It wouldn't be.
They also have it on Amazon if anybody, if it's easier.
Oh, cool. No, but it doesn't curl. It doesn't have any memory, and I don't knot it or anything. I just leave enough, length at each end. But
Catherine said I might have to go to Walmart this afternoon.
Well, I don't know if they have it at every Walmart, but if you can get it on Amazon, it's stealth spider wire, and it's 0.3 millimeters diameter. But you can't, it's flexible enough, you can thread a tapestry needle and just put it on through. And I even used it on the very last row of the border to went through the holes on my chow goose. And I just removed the markers because that's always an issue.
Right.
But yeah, I just removed the markers because it's just plain garter stitch the last several rows.
Well, are you enjoying the project so far?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm almost done my emotional support chicken, because I have to warm up with something else before I can get to the fine stuff. And then after I'm done working with the fine stuff, I need more emotional support. So
well, Catherine and I were chatting before you guys joined, and she said that she's doing 2 rows a day. Do you have any number of rows that you're trying to achieve per day?
Well, it's kind of addictive, and you want to do one more row. I don't know. So the last part of the border was more easy than the very beginning, and maybe it's just me, but and getting used to it. But I'm trying to do like 20 rows.
Oh wow.
10, anywhere between 10 and 20, because some of them are easier. Sorry. Some of them are easier than others.
You find that the longer you go, the more bits of pattern you memorize? Or they become so familiar that you don't have to constantly look at the chart?
The last, I'd say about the last, 20 or so rows of the border, or even more than that, it was easier. The charting was easier, or maybe I'm getting better.
I think you'll find that as you go, you start noticing symbols that look like some pattern elements that look the same. So for example, like knit two together, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, slip, slip, knit. Like you see that a lot in the chart.
Yeah, I can see from my work, you know, it's like when there's a yarn over and it's a knit, then I know I need to do another yarn over and decrease or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm getting better at it, but I did the projects last year.
Right.
So, but
I feel like it's probably the first time this particular project that I'm noticing for myself that like if I glance at the row one time at the beginning of the row, I practically don't have to look at the chart for that row. So like I'm at glance memorizing the row at this point, and I think it's this accumulated ability to like look at the charts and see familiar elements.
yeah, I agree, and especially with the center, starting the center, I only had to refer to the repeat the first couple of times, and then I could finish the whole row.
Right.
But I still have the markers.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
like when you get cocky and you think you got it, that's when things hit the fan and you start making mistakes left and right. So yeah.
I got cocky and had to unravel 15 rows. So that hurt.
Yeah. Who else wants to share your progress with us? Anybody?
Well, poor Patrick did have to go back.
I have mine.
Hold on, I'm just gonna pin you.
Yeah. And I finished my first 32 repeat at the center last night.
Okay.
And I was very slow starting on this. I mean, I did the one last year, but it seemed like I had to get back in the groove.
I totally hear you, because you know what happened last year? I was knitting 3 of those, but after I finished Sorceress, I haven't touched Shetland Lace for like over 6 months. And when I was starting with this project, the first few days, I was like, oh my God, I'm so slow. Like it just, you like your hands forget how to deal with such fine yarn.
Well, I'm using lace weight and not the finer.
Right.
And I have a couple observations. First of all, I'm using size 3, US 3 needles because I'm using lace weight and not cobweb. And so I switched to wooden needles because they come in, these are Hayas, and they're sharp. They're just as sharp as my Chiagos I was using, and I really like them better. But mine, I wasn't here the last time we were away, but I saw yours is smaller than what you expected. Mine is super wide. I mean, this is the 32-inch needles, and you can see, but that's okay. I have plenty of yarn. It'll just be bigger.
I mean, I personally love enormous shawls, as you can tell. Like this one is like 4 meters long, basically, like it can cover half of the room. So like when it comes to shawl, I don't think there's too many things that like I would think are too big. The only thing like you have to keep an eye on the center lengths, right? Like so if the length of the shawl concern you, then maybe like make one repeat less of something in the center and like keep it a little bit shorter. So like that's the only place where you'll do adjustments for the length of the shawl, but like you can always block it wide, and there is no such a thing as like too wide of a shawl, basically.
Well, my only concern is if I'm doing 6 32-row repeats for the center and then starting on the other end and doing 6 more, that means I have to graft it in the center, and that I grafted my other one. It was fine, but I'm wondering if maybe I should just do 12 repeats and graft it at the other end and just have it all going. Do you know what I mean? All going in this direction.
I mean, the only thing is like the borders have to look at the same direction. So like that's the reason why we're doing this grafting in the center, because the borders is something that's in the front at the end of the shawl. Like when you put, if you put the shawl on your shoulders, the borders are going to be the most visible. And so they have to go in the same direction. So like that's why the Shetland lace is grafted usually in the center, but like you can graft at the end of the like you can do it's actually not 6 repeats, it's 7 repeats in the center, because there is like 6 repeats and then you repeat again rows such through such, so it's actually 7 repeats. So you could do you could just do the center, continue the center and then graft it at the second border, but you'll have to do grafting anyway.
Yes, yeah, so.
Like it just matter of where you're gonna graft, right? Belinda, do you wanna show your progress?
Well, I'm still sick, so I haven't gotten any further because you don't want to be holding lace when you go into a coughing fit.
That's true.
So I'm still at where I was 2 weeks ago.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, I keep looking at it and then I start coughing. So
well, at least it's like it's somewhere makes you feel a little better that it's still waiting for you, right? Something to look forward.
When I do get back into it, I like before I got sick, I was doing about 10 rows at a time,
right?
A couple of days. So once I get back into it, I was to the point where I stopped making mistakes. So I think I'll do fine as long as I don't go too far away from it and forget how.
Right. Well, Catherine said you're still ahead of me, so there. And Patrick still starting. So it's like that you don't have a deadline for it. So like don't stress over the like people are ahead of me. And actually one of the reasons I stopped knitting mine and I haven't touched mine so for 2 weeks. So like last time I showed you, I was done with 5 repeats of the center and the first border. And that's exactly where it is now. And one of the reasons, I mean, the main reason was because I overpromised myself to the world. And so I knitted 2 sweaters and started the third, and then I'm doing test knit for this thing. So I'm like, this is secret test knit. You guys see the first glimpse of it. It's not out yet. But like one of other reasons, I didn't want to be ahead of everyone. I wanted to be somewhere like where you guys are, so we can still go through it together. So I'll come back to it soon, but don't let it stress you. Like it's we're all gonna finish it at some point, and if you don't finish it, it's also fine as long as you enjoyed the process and the company. So don't let it stress you. Carol or Jane, do you guys anybody wants to show your progress?
I mean, I could talk about mine. I'm so frustrated. I almost bent my childhood needles the other day and threw them in the trash.
Why?
Along with the whole project.
Tell me why.
I've probably started this thing at least 50 times.
Really?
My lifeline is not fishing wire. It's not dental floss. It is actual sewing thread.
Yeah.
That's what I'm using, because I'm also a quilter, so I have plenty of thread to go around. But I've messed up on row 7 somewhere. Now I got to go back to my lifeline again because I have not worked on it for days. I have noticed that I am trying to work on it too long and too hard, and that I got a repetitive motion injury on my shoulder. I couldn't knit, I couldn't quilt, I couldn't do anything. I just had to rest my arm for like days.
Yeah.
But I have other things that I'm doing too, so I probably haven't touched this shawl in, I don't know, 5 or 6 days maybe. Well, no, it's probably been a week since I've touched it.
What was the problem? Like, why did you undo it before?
because I'm a stitch off somewhere for some reason. And right now I'm
Is
trying
it
to
always
throw in.
from the same place? Like,
No, well, first it was, I couldn't get past row 6. That row 6 was just killing me with that double decrease and the knit 2. And I had to figure out, were we doing the double decreases the first 2 times and then the knit 2 together, or the knit 2 together first, like it says in the pattern, and then the
right.
double decreases. So I finally got all that figured out. And it's just not used to working with cobweb, because this is cobweb.
Yeah.
I had never even worked with lace until this lace class that I'm doing with Suzanne Bryan. So now my lace weight yarn looks like worsted to me. And I've got like magnifying glasses, like the watch repair type glasses, but I can't wear them and do this because then I can't read the chart. So it's just crazy. It's just either my needle is catching right up under the bump and I'm dropping the stitch. So I'm trying to just take it slower and be very meticulous about where the needle tip's going in and just trying to watch it very, very carefully.
Well, the only other thing I can suggest
I was reading the Ravelry chat today, and someone, I don't know who said it, said that lace is very humbling, and I laughed because I was like, that is absolutely what's happening to me.
Well, one other thing I might suggest is it helps because you're working with white yarn. It helps if you try different needles, like something darker needles. Like you can even take bamboo and take a permanent marker and color it, or find like super dark needles, because that makes the stitches stand out and you're not gonna.
I can see the stitches on the needle because because I'm a quilter, I have a lot of lights. So I've got a lot of nice bright table lamps. So I've got light and I can see the stitches on the needle. It's the tip probably going right up underneath the yarn that wraps. Instead of going through the stitch, it goes right under that. And then I end up dropping the stitch and I don't notice it until the next row when I don't have enough stitches. Right. Or I have too many because it didn't complete the stitch properly. So I just gotta slow it down and take it stitch by stitch.
It's that, and it's also like try to do one row like as an exercise, right? Like you're working with Suzanne Bryan, and Suzanne does a lot of exercises. So try this as an exercise. You work between 2 markers. So you work 1 repeat. And when you come to the end of the marker, you stop. Doesn't matter, like even if you were flying through it and everything seems absolutely fine. Just stop between 2 markers, look at the chart and count all the stitches.
Oh, no, I already do all that. Yeah, I'm already doing that. So I don't know what had happened on this row 7 and why I have an extra stitch. It's probably because a stitch from my previous row didn't complete itself, and part of it was probably like a knit 2 together and SSK that one of the legs just stayed on the needle. And
right, but you can probably also
I just have to really just look at it, or when I get really frustrated, I'll just say, screw it, I'm going to rip it back to the lifeline because I'm getting really fast at putting the stitches back on with the lifeline.
Well, good. You see, like that's a skill you just learned with this project. But it's also like it's important to learn to find the mistakes, right? So like if you do that exercise, you're
saying hi in the background of the Zoom. Oh, and so you will be on YouTube.
Hold on. If you stop between the stitches, right, and you try to, like, let's say you 1 stitch over or you 1 stitch under, it allows you to find that mistake super fast.
I just haven't done that yet with this particular iteration of doing it, because with it being, I'm using a size, it's a 2 millimeter, so that's a size zero needle. And it being cobweb, the stitches are bigger and floppier than the needle you would normally use for that weight of yarn. So it's just harder to read the knitting when the stitches are bigger and floppier.
And another little
And
trick.
when I really need to look at the stitches, I will put on those magnifying glasses and look. But it's just, I can't wear them all the time. My
And
vision
a
is-
little tip, like I call it rock and roll movement. So when you insert your needle into 2 stitches, instead of just knitting it immediately, go around the needle one time, like lift them up off the needle. And
I do all of that.
Sorry to
I do
smile,
all
right?
of that.
So the idea is like, it's there, right? Like you're already controlling the yarn. It's just a matter of like slowing down and finding those mistakes before it's too late. So there's like different ways of doing it.
And it's a matter of stop trying to do 4 hours at a time and just
Yeah,
sit there
definitely.
and
Like,
do
I mean,
few rows, because that's why I think I injured my shoulder.
yeah.
Because I was just like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna get this, this is gonna win, I'm gonna beat it, it's not gonna beat me. And
Yeah, for
I
sure.
just-
I mean,
did it too long because I noticed I'm holding everything different because of the smaller weight of
right.
the smaller yarn. I'm holding it different, and that's why my shoulder got all jacked up.
And I was actually like, I don't know if you guys saw this, but like I interviewed Carson Demers at some point on my channel, and he's the author of a book called Knitting Comfortably. So he's a brilliant knitter, but he's also a physical therapist. And so he wrote this book. It's called Knitting Comfortably by Carson Demers. It's cheaper to buy it on his website than Amazon if anybody wants to look into it. Like Amazon has some crazy prices for this particular book. But he's talking a lot about like making very small changes. Like it's not about all or nothing. It's about like making small changes to knit ergonomically, right? So one of the things is the light is very important, how you see it, where you see it, but like what kind of needles you use for what kind of project. But it's also like super important to take often breaks, because it doesn't matter what a brilliant knitter you are and how ergonomically you're holding your needles. If you're doing it for 4 hours nonstop, you're gonna injure yourself. So just like force yourself, do a couple rows and just force yourself to get up and walk around the room and then sit down and continue. But like, don't lose yourself in knitting for hours, because
That's my problem, because I could feel it coming on, and I was like, one more row, one more row, one more row, and then I was also at a quilting retreat for 3 days, and I couldn't even hold my hands up like this to guide the fabric through the machine. It's like, I'm done. My arm is done until it rests for a few days.
Right. And my son is a climber, so he does rock climbing, and he injures himself all the time. So it takes him time to recuperate between the injuries. So when I had my problem with my shoulder, which I had for like over a year, basically like any hanging motion fixes the shoulder faster than anything else. So if you have some bar or even like windowsill that you can, and you don't have to do pull-ups, you just like put a little weight on your shoulder by hanging, and that helps that muscle to strengthen. So try that. But like, yeah, taking breaks is like super important, because we want to enjoy knitting for as long as we can. And
oh yeah, I started doing some work around the house because I'm single, so I have to do all my own house maintenance. So I started doing stuff like that to make my arm do different things and get into different positions. So I mean, I'm very aware. I'm just sometimes too hard-headed to listen to my body.
Put the timer on. Put the timer on and like get up for 2 minutes. Like after half an hour, put the timer on. It's just like, it's something like we all doing it, and we all need to learn how to take care of ourselves. Catherine,
but I'm getting frustrated.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's how
hopefully
I
get past
started.
7.
That's how I started going down to 2 rows a night after work. Like on the weekend, I'll do 2 rows, and then I'll get up and do something else, go get groceries, even knit on a bulkier project for a while. And then I'll go back later on in the afternoon and maybe do another 2 rows and then have supper. Because when I came home from work, I always wanted to do, 1 more row or 2 more rows. And the 3rd row was where I screwed up. And I have a stitch. And the other thing I've learned is to not, I count, I have stitch markers every 24 stitches every half repeat. And I do go back and count every time. And then I count at the end, but I still dropped a stitch, and I'm not sure. I think it was on row 9, maybe. I thought I got through row 6, but I had 3 lifelines in, and the problem, because I just kept adding them and not taking the ones out. And it disguised the fact that I had dropped the stitch for about a dozen rows. And then when I took that bottom lifeline out to put it in again higher up, the stitch popped out and dropped down. And I could have ripped it out and started again. But because I came to the knit along 2 weeks ago, they said, don't stress perfection. And I thought, I can just loop this into the bottom border now. It's close enough to the bottom that, you know, I can tie it in and you're not going to really notice it against the join. And I got to the, like I did on knit last night when I screwed up on row 3 because there were no double decreases. I think if I had double decreases in there, if I'd done one more row, I would have fudged, because that was the other thing that Irina and her friends 2 weeks ago said is fudge.
Yeah, like
instead of starting it over 37 times, if you're out by 1 stitch, add a stitch. If you've got 1 stitch too many, knit 2 together in a place that looks logical, like on the edge of the holes, so that you're not gonna necessarily notice it. And I'm trying to embrace my inner imperfectionist, but still on a work night, it's like I said, 2 rows and done. And last night it was a work day, but I got home a little early, so I tried to do that 3rd row. And that's where the mistake came in.
Right. Well, I just want to show you guys the book. So this is the book. It's called Knitting Comfortably. And it's the ergonomics of hand knitting by Carson Demers. So Carson does also classes at Vogue Knitting. If you ever take like Vogue Knitting online, he sometimes does classes there where he talks about it. And it's a brilliant book because it goes through like how to sit and like the posture and how to hold the needles and what kind of needles is better for what kind of thing. So I interviewed him. It was episode 195. He was on my channel, if you want to look it up. So you just go on Fiberchats and you look up episode 195. And you might want to watch it because there was a lot of little tips that he was giving. And sometimes it's not like something major, right? Like altering life changes. Sometimes it's just sitting in a better chair, because he shows like some chairs that would cut the circulation in your legs. And sometimes you would sit and your shoulders are going to be too high. And there is something that like we don't even notice, but by putting these little changes, it just like makes our life easier and makes us healthier knitters in the long time. Jane, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I hurt my shoulder very badly about 2 years ago knitting, and I know exactly what I did. And I cannot sit with my elbows up on the arm of anything, or even touching the arm of the couch now. My arms have to be straight down. I even bought a new office chair that doesn't have arms because I knit here, and that really messed up my shoulder. So don't do that anymore.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be careful, because like we're doing something just because we like so into the process of knitting that we don't pay attention to minor discomforts until they become really major discomforts. Like I was knitting a shawl by Julie Knits in Paris, and I was using silk yarn, and I was using metal chiagos, and the silk was like flying off the needles. So I didn't even notice that I was gripping it a little tighter until I couldn't like unfold my hands anymore. They were like in this crooked position basically. And it took me a few weeks to get out of the pain of my thumb was hurting, my wrist was hurting, like everything was hurting. And I didn't even realize at the time like what was happening and why it was happening. So it's like, yeah, something to keep attention. Jane, how is your progress with the shawl?
Me, it's good. I already showed it. It's doing good.
That's beautiful.
I did the first 32 repeats of the center. And I am going faster now. And like you said, I can just look at it and then not have to look at the chart again.
Yeah, it's becoming like familiar, like you see it and you're like, oh, I remember that. So it sort of just sticks to you. Okay, thank you. Alina, do you want to share your progress?
So I was going to switch to a really nice blue yarn that I found from Color Mart, but I didn't have the heart to frog this. So I'm sticking to this. I just decided to just continue. That was just, I decided to be good to myself. So I am on like row 118, I think, of chart 1B, and just also been sick. So just trying to take it slow, but I'm really enjoying it. And I find that if I slow down and pay attention, and also took a tip from you to hold the needles closer to the points, and also pull on the lace as I work on the stitches, that way I definitely see them a lot better. And the same stuff, you know, good lighting and everything else, but I am slowly getting there, I think. So
do you find it's easier this time around, like in comparison to last time you were knitting fine lace?
Yes, definitely. And it's just a matter of, you know, I knit different things, and not often do I knit with really fine yarn like this. So this is, you know, Hapsalu yarn, wool yarn, but it's definitely, it looks really pretty. I basically feel like I am like a painter, you know, with needles and yarn or something. But when everything matches up, I get really excited at the end of the row when all the stitches are there, nothing is missing, you know, and it's like, hey, you know, I did it. And I don't know if maybe this would help. This is how I use my chart. I use these little clippers and I mark it, you know, on the sides, and that helps me. And that way, sometimes when I even can put it on a folder if it has to be standing up. So that also helps me to keep track. So just little things that I use, you know, to just help me. So
yeah, Wendy, so you said that you bought the book after that interview. Did you find the book useful? Did you find some new interesting tips there?
Yeah, I did actually. And I went out and I ordered an ergonomic chair. And I just don't, because I also ordered a table, because I think it's easier for me if I can rest my work on a flat surface. I have a lap desk that I'm using right now because I haven't set up room, you know, an area. I want to choose one that has good light, you know, and have that be my station. I'll probably turn my whole front room into my fiber, my knitting area.
Why not? Like,
but I still haven't decided on the spot. But yeah, the book, he gave some interesting things, because I think that was one of the best interviews that I've watched of yours. It really made a difference.
I think he gave like a lot of very useful information during that interview specifically, because it's like, I mean, it's hard to wear like, you know, the years of knowledge into an hour-long interview, but I think he gave a lot of little tips of like what to pay attention to and what little changes you can make to make your knitting more ergonomic.
Yeah, I agree.
I also, so there is, I'm trying to find among my orders the one that the lamp that I'm using.
Carson is doing another interview type thing with Longmart. Hold on, let me find the email. I just had it. I think it's April, like the 21st.
Yeah.
And I know it's a paid thing that you have to sign up for.
I mean, it's usually like really worth it.
It's April the 24th. It's Longmont, Longmont yarn shop. He had to reschedule it to April the 21st. I want to say it was like 20 some dollars maybe.
Yeah, it's
But
usually like
if you're interested in signing up for that, go check out Longmart.
Carol, can you please put it on the in the chat, if you just the name of it. And so this is the lamp that I'm using. It's Hot Light. I don't know if you can guys see it. So it's a floor lamp. They also come as a desk lamp. It's OTT light. L-I-T-E, OTT L-I-T-E. And
but this actual light right here.
Yeah, so it's really like a daylight also. Like I cannot need Shetland lace at night unless I'm using that lamp, because it creates this daylight. It's not blinding you. It doesn't reflect from needles. Somehow it's like the only lamp I can use, and highly recommend that, because I tried different lights and somehow like that's the only one that like really I can see at night, when knitting at night. Does anybody else want to share progress or ask any questions?
I had a suggestion. I forget who said they were losing track of their, like they were stitch off.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the double decrease rows, you do have to move your marker. You have to.
Yeah, like you have the double decreases. That's when the marker moves, and so maybe that's, yeah, that's a good point actually. So like sometimes if the marker is exactly where the double decrease is happening, it moves it for one row, one stitch over.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a good point.
I was moving my markers. It's the actual stitch count that's off when I go to count them back.
Oh,
for me.
Hold on, say it again.
My issue wasn't moving the markers, it was the actual stitch count. When I went to count them, I was either over one or under one.
Right. Have you tried looking like on the row below and like trying to figure out where exactly it happened? I'm just curious, like what, because like if you...
I have, but because I am only less than 10 rows into this project, trying to drop down and fix anything, it's just easier to just break it and start over again.
Right. Well, it's gonna be lucky number 51. That's my bet. So I'm hoping that this time it's gonna stick with you and you're not gonna let it go.
I've got 2 lifelines in right now, so if I mess up on the one lifeline, I've got another lifeline to catch me.
Perfect. Yeah. So like, I mean, while you're going now, while it's a little bit slow, put lifeline like every couple rows. Like there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, there is. I've only got 6 rows on here, and there's one on row 2 and one on row 5. So, because I knew row 6 was the one who was giving me issue, so I put the lifeline on 5. And then I should have put one. I'm hoping that after I get past row 10 and I've got enough fabric there to really grab hold of, then I'll just start flying a little bit faster.
Yeah. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna get much better from now on. Like
I also help Suzanne Bryan with all of her classes, so I don't have a lot of time to work on it at the present moment because we're setting up another class. So
that's totally fine. Like we're doing, you know, as much as like some people have time to just do 1 row every week. You know, it doesn't matter. Like it's all about learning something together, knitting something together, spending time together instead of just doing it by yourself at home. So
I'm trying not to let it frustrate me, but it really almost hit the trash the other night along with my needles, because I thought I was grabbing them so hard. I was like, oh, they're gonna bend. Stop, these are chow goose. Don't do my chow goose like that.
Oh, and by the way, if you guys haven't watched my interview with Suzanne Bryan, I love that interview. Suzanne is absolutely wonderful and she's so knowledgeable. And she said one thing that stuck with me. She said, you know, like if you're going to a movie and you're buying tickets and popcorn, it's going to cost you $30 and that's going to be the end of it after 2 hours. But if you're buying a beautiful skein of yarn You can knit with it for a week, and then if you make mistakes, you frog it, and you can knit with it much longer than a week, and it just doubles the value of entertainment. So she's like very positive, very knowledgeable. She's a handmaster knitter from the Knitting Guild Association. So highly recommend that interview as well. And the last interview I'm going to recommend is the one with Monique Boonstra, because she's the designer behind this pattern. And we talked a lot about her design journey, how she became a designer, how she learned to read lace so beautifully, and her thoughts on Shetland lace. So another interview you might find interesting.
Well, I have another question.
Sure.
So I know when you're looking at the chart that the knit two togethers become SSKs on the even rows. The hardest part about this for me is not calling it right side, wrong side, calling it even and odd. So on the even side rows, the knit two togethers become SSKs, SSKs become knit two togethers. Do you change the double decreases in any way, or do you, or just the double decrease is always the same on every row?
No, the double decreases stay the same. And the way I like to think about it, like instead of thinking the right, the wrong row, right? So we're starting, some rows we'll read from right to left, and some rows we read from left to right. So when we go from right to left, I like to think like, this is the left border, and I'm doing from right to left towards left. So are the decreases going towards the end of that knitting or away from that knitting? So sometimes like you don't need to think about like, is it knit two together? Is it slip, slip, knit? You sort of like instinctively thinking like, am I going towards the end or am I going towards the beginning? So
well, again, once I get past 10 or so rows, I'll be able to see it and won't have to think, am I doing a knit two together or am I doing an SSK, because I've got so few rows that it's really hard to see it right now.
No, but you sort of like, you see it in your mind, right? Like, so let's say we have the element where it's knit two together, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, slip, slip, knit, which is like the most typical thing you see in Shetland lace. Like you see it like 70 times in just the border in this pattern. So you know that like if it's knit two together, it's going to be looking towards the beginning of your knitting from where you started. And if it's slip, slip, knit, it's going to look away from your knitting to where you're going. So like you can just look at the pattern and you already know which one of them is slip, slip, knit and which one of them is knit two together. So just think in terms of like, is it leaning to the left or is it leaning to the right, right? Does it make sense?
I mean, I've trained my brain now to think even row, odd row.
I mean, we all have different ways of making it easier for ourselves, right? There's no right or wrong way. It just like sound like I use for example, like when I knit, I use this highlighter tape to show me where I am on the chart. For other people, they can put another piece of paper. Some people use highlighter. Like we all use different systems. Some people,
yeah, I use Knit Companion.
Right. Like we all have different system that works for us, right? So there is not like one right way. So you have to like explain. It's just basically like a matter of making your brain understand what you're trying to achieve. So like we all have different paths to the same Garden of Eden, you know? So does anybody else have any questions? Well, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna say thank you to all for joining it. I'm thinking next time is gonna be April 6th, so it's another 2 weeks. It's gonna be Saturday, April 6th. Hope you have time and hope you have some time knitting. Hope all of those who didn't feel well will feel better. And please don't let it frustrate you. It's a fun project, and it's we're all gonna learn something from it. And in the end, we're all gonna finish it. And even if we don't, we'll enjoy each other's company. So thank you for joining me today, and till next time, happy knitting.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Irina.
Bye. Thank you.
Yes, bye. I always learn something every time.
Yep,
New tips and tricks.
That's the idea.
I don't feel alone. I'm not so isolated. Because nobody I know is doing this except for sometimes on the makers meetup. But it's nice to know that you're not alone.
Yeah. No, thank you all for joining. Thank you.